What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. All right, so without any further ado, we're going to start with you, Carson. Who is most likely to go on a deep playoff run this year, LeBron James or Steph Curry?
Well, I want to start by saying that I think it's unlikely when you're talking about deep, like a finals sort of run for either of these teams, and probably Western Conference Finals too. But I still clearly think that it's LeBron. And the reality is just that he would have to do less superhero stuff for the Lakers to make, say, a Western Conference Finals run than Steph would. And the obvious reason there is that he has another superstar caliber player on his team, and Anthony Davis, who could be their best player for a series. There's nobody on the Warriors who could possibly carry that sort of load. He also has the backbone that is AD, specifically defensively, and the fact that the Lakers can reach a defensive ceiling where they're dominant. And that was the driving factor of their success in last year's run. So I think that LeBron can get to a special level, but he'll be able to pick his spots more, even in a playoff run where it doesn't have to be every single night I'm doing what Steph did in game 7 versus the Kings, because that's kind of what it feels like this Warriors team would need to make some noise. And I do think the elite size in the front court makes the Lakers match up much better against some of those other super big physical teams in the West, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves. The Warriors are just going to be outmatched physically in those matchups. The lack of a second dynamic shot creator, it's just too costly for them. So I have felt all year that it's LA. I still feel, even as both these teams have struggled, that it's definitely LA.
Those are the two biggest points for me with the Lakers, too. He has Anthony Davis to rely on, and they're just physical as hell, and they're athletic as hell. They're big as hell. And the Warriors, sadly, like, as much as I like the conglomerate of assets that they have, the bench pieces that have stepped up, shout out B-Pod, shout out Kuminga for going crazy, shout out TJD. Like, I like a lot of the Warriors pieces, but they don't have a dominant number two. They are at physical disadvantages, and Anthony Davis is the best player, this season. Out of the two guys, like, Steph just doesn't have that luxury. So I also think it's the Lakers. And I think they're more, if we're looking at this from a trade deadline perspective, I know we bring this up every time we talk about LA. I think considering that they are the Los Angeles Lakers, they don't have a core like the Warriors do. They are more likely to make a game-changing move at the deadline as well.
Yeah, I think if we go back a month, it's a chasm between the two. I think it was just so much more clear that the Lakers were more primed for that type of playoff run. But some things have changed. For instance, Andrew Wiggins is starting to play a little bit better. Jonathan Kuminga over the course of the last 3 weeks is basically he went from not having a single consecutive stretch of 20-point games in his career to what's he on, 7 or 8 of them in a row now. Yeah. So you have the rise of Jonathan Kuminga. Even on the other end of things for the Lakers, we went from, Jared Vanderbilt is vitally important to this team. And we got an announcement today that he's going to be out for at least a few more weeks, and that that season-ending surgery is on the table for Jared Vanderbilt, which wouldn't be a death sentence for the Lakers, but would significantly cut into their margin for error. So it is closer. But that said, it's still the Lakers. It's a lot of specific reasons. They have more star power. Like you said, there's more secondary shot creation support for LeBron James. And even extending into the typical stuff that we know matters the most when we get to the NBA playoffs. So, for instance, the Lakers have the size to match up with a lot of teams that other teams do not. The Lakers have more superstar talent than the Warriors have. The Lakers have, even just among the guys in their rotation that are younger, they're younger players with playoff experience now. Rui Hachimura was there for the deep playoff run. Austin Reeves was there for the deep playoff run. A lot of these guys like Podziemski, Trace Jackson Davis, they're like Kuminga barely played in last year's playoff run. So I think they're just more primed, even if we do acknowledge that that trend is flipping. And I want to be clear, that trend is flipping because I actually see the Warriors going on a Lakers-esque second half run for a bunch of specific reasons. One, they have the 5th easiest remaining schedule in the NBA, which, especially if you factor in the Western Conference, where I was digging into the numbers the other day. The West is just so much deeper with talent from the top to the bottom. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I pulled up like the head-to-head records, and the Western Conference teams have like a 30 wins in the positive, over 500 over Eastern Conference teams head-to-head this year. Like the West is just deeper, and the Warriors have had a hellacious schedule to start the year with Draymond playing in only 20 of the games. And so I think there's a lot of potential for the Warriors to go on that type of run. But again, when you get down to like the playoff groupings, and it's like it's probably going to be Steph, Clay, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, and Draymond Green. It's just with some of the decline we've seen from Klay Thompson, with Jonathan Kuminga being so young, it's just hard to pick them in a series the way that you can kind of see the Lakers kind of getting to that point. I want to be clear though, like both of these teams, they're both kind of poised to head into that play-in tournament range. And our top two teams in the Western Conference are the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves, two teams that are extremely good. And I'm not trying to sit here and undercut the good that they bring to the table, but between some of the limitations that we've talked about with the Timberwolves and some of their late game execution, their clutch offense has been garbage in the last like month or so. And then you look at the Thunder and some of the limitations they have as being a young and small team. It's kind of crazy because I agree with you, Carson. Both of these teams are seemingly in worse position than they were last year. Yeah, it's like you get into that 7-8 slot and you have a chance. It's like, man, I don't think it's off the table. So before we move on, I want to give you guys one more follow-up. Do you think it's more likely than not that either team pulls off a first-round upset, or more likely than not that they both lose in the first round or miss the playoffs entirely?
I think it is more likely than not, if we're viewing them as a collective, probably that they lose in the first round or miss entirely, just because I'm struggling to see it with the Warriors right now. And there is a lot still that I like. And I know that their record is poor, but by net rating, like they've been a better team than the Lakers. They've had some of the worst late game execution and also luck. They've lost so many close games this year. They have dealt with Draymond's absence for an extended period, and they have been looking different as of late because of the dynamic changer that is Jonathan Kuminga. But I still see some irreversible issues with them. And when I look at a team like the Thunder, they're more athletic. They have more dynamic shot creators. They're defending at a higher level. Yeah, they're less experienced, but I just think Steph would have to go supernova. And when SGA is opposite you and he has the best supporting cast, that's just tough formula. I still think the Lakers have the upside to beat a whole lot of teams out west, not the Nuggets. I think the Clippers would be a strong favorite, but outside of that, LeBron and AD, and they have much more secondary shot creation, as you mentioned, from the perimeter, Jason. If you're picking out the two dudes outside of that star tier who it's like, hey, run me a pick and roll, float my offense for 6 minutes, you want Austin Reeves and you want D'Angelo Russell more than you want anybody on that Warriors roster after Steph. So unfortunately, I just think the path is too long for the Warriors right now.
Call me crazy. I don't know. If we get those hypothetical matchups, I think I might take LA and Golden State to win, to upset them both. I don't know, dude. The experience factor really matters to me there. And you say that it is a tall task to ask Steph to do that. But I mean, has Steph given us any reason to doubt him? Like, I don't know, man. I think in that hypothetical matchup, I would pick the Lakers and the Warriors to both upset those young teams, man. I'm gonna ride with the old guard.
The tough one would be the Warriors. The like I think they would need to catch OKC in particular to get that first round upset, but I think that's on the table specifically just because I really do think Golden State would have just a huge experience advantage there. Draymond Green too, you could just see him getting all into the gamesmanship in the early phase of the series to like snatch Chet Holmgren of his confidence and to do some things along those lines. I would lean slightly more towards it's more likely than not that we get one of those teams to upset somebody in the first round.